With autumn fast approaching here in the UK, let's get cozy and paint this candle with easy to follow steps. Thank you for joining us here on The Wonders of Watercolour, where today we're getting autumnal and cozy and painting this candle. I've already done the outline, as you can see, and I provide you with a free outline and a reference photograph that you can trace down, and I'll tell you later on how you can obtain them. The colours that I'm using today are from Daniel Smith, and they are Buff Titanium, Moonglow, Jane's Grey, Raw Umber, Hansa Yellow Medium and Pyrrol Scarlet. And the brushes are from my own set that I recently launched in a collaboration with Craftamo, along with my little etcher palette here to mix up my colours. So all the materials I'm going to use I will link in the description box, and as always, please use the colours that you have. You don't have to go out and buy everything that I'm using. Now you can see here that I've got this tiny little swatch card, and I use this to match my colours up, and these are the colours that I've mixed up, as you can see here. This gives me a good idea of the colours, how they will look together when I place them on the painting. So to start with, I'm using a mixture of Moonglow along with Buff Titanium, which I'm mixing in a tiny bit of Raw Umber and Jane's Grey there. This is Buff Titanium with a little bit of Hansa Yellow Medium. So to start with, I'm going to just use my flat brush to add the water to the glass, only where I want to apply my first wash. Now, if you're new to watercolour painting, watercolour is all about adding layers of watercolour gently and carefully, and you can see that by adding that first wash of water, I'm dropping in the mixture of Moonglow with Jane's Grey on the base and the Buff Titanium in the middle of the glass there. This time I'm using my number 8 round. Because the paper is damp, the paint will only go where you've dropped in that water earlier on to give it this beautiful soft blurry look. This method is called wet and wet, and it's a great way to start your paintings. Using a mix of Jane's Grey there, I'm just dropping it in where I applied that water so that it will blur naturally into the paper. The paper that I'm using is a rough surface today. I particularly like this brand by Arches. It just gives that beautiful textured look. This is a mixture of Hansa Yellow Medium with Buff Titanium, and I'm dropping it in around the flame and where I can see the reflected light of that flame in the glass, using the tip of my number 8 brush to put that pigment just up to the pencil line. And now just going on to the base of the glass where it's resting on the table with my flat brush. For this, I'm just using Daniel Smith's Moonglow, but of course you can use whichever colour that you want to. I'm just taking that pigment, this time just adding a few different colours that I've already got mixed up, just to give it a little bit of variation. Just using my flat brush for this, adding a little bit of water to the base just to blur that colour out. This is our base tone on which we will build up the colours later. Taking a little bit of that Moonglow mixed with Jane's Grey and just applying it to the bottom of the glass like this with my number 8 brush, and you can see how I'm just wiggling that into the paper and blurring it out with a damp brush. Super easy to do. This tutorial is suitable for beginners or whatever level that you're at. I'm taking a smaller brush, this time is a number 2 round, and you can see where that little pencil line is at the top, just taking a tiny bit of Moonglow just to enhance that shape. Adding a tiny bit of Jane's Grey to that mix there and applying it. As you can see, I've kept the lines on this outline really simple so that you can follow along and make the application as easy as possible. There are lots of colour switches within this glass, and by putting the little outlines in as I've done here, it just guides you as to where to put that paint. You can see the colour that I picked up here. This is a mixture of Buff Titanium with a tiny bit of Raw Umber, and just going back to that Moonglow to enhance some of those colours. Using my number 4 brush to do this. This brush has a particularly fine point and is great for finer detail. Adding the colour to the line here. Now every week here on YouTube we upload new content. Usually botanicals, but we do other things as well because we're getting that autumn feeling now, back to autumn vibes and feeling cozy. But if this kind of painting appeals to you, you may want to consider subscribing and hitting the little bell notification so that you'll be notified every time we upload and you won't miss out. Just continuing to add that colour and switching it with the other colours in my palette. I'm not being too fussy. Just applying this with a sort of stippling motion to give it a looser feel. Adding a little bit more brown to that mix. This is the kind of colour that I'm looking for. And now that the paint is dry, just going over some of the areas with that darker colour. Because we've got the pencil lines in place, use them as a guide as to where you're going to apply that darker tone. This takes the guesswork out of it and makes it a little less scary. All the materials I've used today I will link in the description box underneath this video, but as I said, use the nearest colours that you have, and if you are struggling matching up your colours, let me know in the comments and I'll help you out. If you are enjoying this video, could I ask you to hit that like button? It's a way of letting YouTube know that you're enjoying my content, and it means more people can see it. It's also a way that you can support my channel. Adding a little bit more buff titanium, a little bit more Hansa yellow, and this time a tiny bit of Pyrrol Scarlet. So we've got this kind of muted mustardy tone. Now that we know where we're going to apply that colour, we can safely go over that colour with this darker value just to make that colour stand out a little bit more, working around the flame. Using my number 8 brush for this number 8 brush has a particularly fine point and is great for bigger washes as well as smaller details. Taking this yellow colour to the sort of about midway down and just painting it on wet on dry. If you want access to the line drawing and outline, it's really easy. All you need to do is watch this video right until the end, and I will put them up after I show you the finished painting, and all you need to do is pause the video, screenshot it, and you can print it out that way. Or you can join us on our Facebook group where you can have access to all of our outlines and reference photographs all for free, and you can join in with our tutorials that are right here on YouTube. All you need to do is join up to our Facebook group, and I will link that in the description box. And also you can share your finished paintings there and have some feedback from me, my team and our fantastic members there. So do join us there. We are an amazing community and I know you're going to love it. This is my blender brush and I'm using the stamp to merge the colours together. Sometimes when watercolour dries it has this hard and tidy edge, and just by using a damp brush like this you can get rid of that sort of tide mark that you get with watercolour and just blend it out. I'm using a tiny bit more Pyrrol Scarlet to that mix there and just taking it to the tiny area that you can see that's burning inside that flame. To the outside of that, I'm adding one of the grey colours, it doesn't matter which, and now we just need to let that dry. Are you an aspiring artist looking to take your skills to the next level? Or perhaps you're looking for fresh inspiration? Then you may want to consider joining our Patreon. Our Patreon tutorials have much more in-depth instructions and are at a much slower pace, and depending on the membership level you choose, you can have personalised feedback from me and video calls. Unlike our YouTube tutorials, our Patreon art classes focus on really learning the art of botanical painting, and I will guide you step by step through the technique and skills you will need to learn and improve your botanical art. All of our Patreon tutorials are exclusive to my patrons and you won't find them on YouTube. So why not join up to our Patreon and start creating botanical art you can be truly proud of. So I was straight into our Patreon there. If you are interested in learning how to paint botanicals, as I said there in that little bit of B-roll, you can join and leave at any time. And we also have a mentorship level. So if you're really interested in learning how to paint and take your paintings to the next level, then you may want to consider joining us over there. I'll link it in the description box. Okay, so we're back to the drawing, back to the painting, and you can see I'm still mixing up those colours where I'm pointing to there on the swatch card. And because everything's now dry, we're able to add a bit more detail. I'm using a mixture of raw umber and Jane's grey for the inside of the flame, and whatever's left of my brush, I'm just adding it watered down to the bottom part there underneath the rim of the glass. I did feel at this point that the outside edge of the glass needed a little bit more detail, and you can see from the reference photograph that I've left in screen here that some of the areas are darker than others, and it's kind of important when you're painting glass that's clear, you're painting in some of those reflections as well. This gives it a little bit more dimension and it stops it from looking flat. I'm using my number 4 brush for this, and then adding a tiny bit of that yellow tone. This is a mixture of buff titanium, Hansa yellow medium and Pyrrol Scarlet. Back to the darker colour and just adding this watered down to the edges of the glass you can see me doing here, and once again blending it in with a damp brush. It doesn't matter what colour you use for this, which is why I'm not stating the colour. I've put Moon Glow on one side and Moon Glow with a tiny bit of Jane's Grey on the other, as long as you add a little bit more water than usual, and you can apply it like this and then blend it through as I'm doing here. I'm just continuing to build up the colours, and I'm adding a little bit of detail to the reflected light that you can see on the bottom of the glass there, still adding those darker values. It doesn't matter what colour you use at this point, anything that's a dark kind of grey tone. I've used Moon Glow with Jane's Grey and Jane's Grey on its own, just using this to outline the glass, and then I'm going to blur it in as usual with my water, just using that damp brush. If you want a softer edge to your paintings, just clean your brush in the water, pat it dry, and then just blend it as I've done throughout this demonstration. We've got a few more minutes to go on this video yet, but I'm going to stop talking and play you some music. Remember to stay right until the end. After I've shown you the finished painting, you can have access to that outline and reference photograph that I've mentioned earlier on, so that you can pause that screen and print them out that way. Thank you so much for watching. And remember to subscribe and like this video if you've enjoyed it. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. See you soon.